Acclaimed by TBD, a fictional sci-fi comedy podcast. Chapter 7, Monster Romance. Ahoy, passengers! You're aboard The Love Trope, a romance podcast that promises smutty reads for everyone. I'm your host, Sharon Manologe, about romance novels so you can set a course for your next reading adventure. And listeners, put your paws up, because it's time for a monster's ball. The Love Trope is taking a detour to a very specific territory within the world of monster erotica. And that is monster erotica where the monsters have snouts. Think minotaurs or hellhounds. Look, I read everything romance. There is never a subgenre I won't try, but I've always been too scared to read a monster romance novel where the monster has more of a snout than like a regular mouth. Fangs I can do. Tusks, fine. Tentacles, claws, tails, all of that I love. It's just that for me, the idea of reading a snouted monster book, it makes me scared of, what if this turns me on too much? What if snouts turn me on, and suddenly, what if snouts become the only thing that ever turns me on? Okay, but then wait a minute. Oh my God, snouts are very real. My childhood dog had a snout. I used to house sit for an architect who had a dog. That dog had a snout. What if I start seeing dogs in a sexual way? And you know who else has snouts? Bears, pigs, rats. So, reading monster erotica where the monster has a snout made me scared that I would go nuts and suddenly find myself like not allowed to be within a certain radius of a zoo. So, I know you're thinking, well, then don't read snout monster erotica. And you make a good point, person who is not there. But the thing is, there is a certain reality of existence that a middle-aged woman has when, roughly a year ago, she was violently abducted from her apartment by a cyborg alien empire, only to then survive an interspecies mutiny and subsequent spaceship collision because she was off having explosive diarrhea. And now, this middle-aged woman is stranded on an uninhabited planet with alien warriors who jizz magical semen and Gen Z women who all know how to spearfish, and one Earth human male who puts asshole in astronaut Captain Brett Reyes. These are all fellow survivors who never appreciate any of the quirky references this middle-aged woman makes to Romancing the Stone. So this is all to say, survival is boring. It is so fucking boring. I didn't realize how much downtime there is when all you're doing is just trying to stay alive. Yes, am I petrified that I could die at any moment? Of course I am. But it is impossible to be petrified all the time. When you're like in between all of the near-death crises, and it's like the day-to-day, the hour-to-hour, the minute-to-minute, it's fucking mind-numbing. And I am saying this knowing how lucky I am that I got abducted with my podcast equipment and my computer that has every ebook I ever downloaded. Because if I didn't, I don't know what I would have done with all of my brain energy. Like, I need things to think about when there is nothing to think about. So, I have read and reread every single book on my hard drive except for a few books with titles like Mail Order Minotaur and Audited by the Anubis. Now, during this podcast's hiatus, I toyed with the idea of pushing through my discomfort and reading these books. But obviously, things would come up. Like all of us survivors having to pitch in to help rebuild the campsite when Reyes's spaceship combusted. And then I know you're thinking, well, then why don't you just start writing your own romance novel, Sharon? To which I say, did you just miss that I stated Reyes's spaceship combusted and it was the only chance I had to return to Earth? So now I'll never be rescued. And like, this is it for me. This is it. Like, I may as well be dead. I did one time try to write erotica. Years ago, I took an online erotica writing workshop, but let's just say I'm no Sierra Simone. I'm no Katie Robert. Honestly, I'm no E.L. James. I suck. My erotica sucks. I thought I was going to be the best one in the class, too. But the instructor's feedback on my one story that I wrote was, this is embarrassing for you. Reading it killed something inside of me. Never show this to anyone. So, it was a little harsh. But whatever, people have said worse things to me. As recently as yesterday, the alien warriors I'm marooned with, the Decipraxins, they don't use family surnames. On their home planet of Keto Prime, your surnames are just whatever your best quality is. That's why we have Prince Teko the Loyal and Gress the Mighty. Anyway, the Decipraxins started bestowing these names on the human survivors here as part of a cultural exchange. So now we have Dara the Bold and Mariah the Healer. And do you know what they named me? Sharon the Startled. Startled. Being startled, according to them, is my best quality. And like, what do they think is my worst quality? And I am pretty sure now that we chose Prince Teko to lead us, Sharon the Startled is my legal name now. Sharon the Startled. That is going to be the name on my driver's license. If we ever build roads and stuff. Sharon the Startled. That is the legacy I am leaving. But you know what? When it comes to this podcast, I will always be Sharon Manovich. Consistency is always important when it comes to podcasting, fake or otherwise. So for this episode of the podcast, I was forced to make a choice. Do I reread The Hating Game for the 1000th time? Or do I finally get the courage and read Mail Order Minotaur? And that was a really tough choice. It was one of the toughest choices I ever had to make. Well, besides whether or not to support a group of human women who wanted to cohabitate with aliens on a foreign planet rather than return to Earth, that was a big choice. And one I didn't have to make in the end because my ride home combusted. And there is no hope for anything anymore. And no, I am not going to spiral. I don't want to go to a dark place. I just need to focus on the positive. Think about the things I do have going for me. You know what? I am no longer the most annoying survivor anymore. Your girl is now the second most annoying. That's right, I am no longer the first person all of the capable people gripe about when they're all off making the correct decisions for our survival. And do you know who is the most annoying? Earth astronaut Captain Brett Reyes. Reyes has been causing so much drama because he hates being told what to do by Prince Teko. I mean, I don't like it either, but I forgot how great it feels to be the second worst person in a group. Reyes' downfall started when he was accusing everyone of sabotaging his spaceship. He was like, we're not moving forward with this new civilization shit until we find out who did it. And then Gress the Mighty bolts up, and he's towering over Reyes, and he's like, you input blame anew? And then Reyes gets in Gress's face, and he's like, is that a threat? And we are all watching the two of them just get face to face, looking like they're about to kill each other. And it was so uncomfortable. And I don't do well in uncomfortable silences. So to lighten the mood, I say, "Are you sure you didn't leave your key in the ignition, Reyes?" Now, did that comment get a lot of groans? Yes. But did Reyes have a clever comeback? No, he did not. He got super pissed off, called me a mouthy shrew, and then just stomped away. And the inner brat inside of me was just celebrating. And then, a week later, when he found out that all of our fruits and vegetables were grown from magic alien jizz, the way he freaked out is an experience I will never forget. Just the way his eyes widened and how he kept saying, "You're kidding, you're kidding, you're kidding." It was like 100 times he said that. And then the utter disgust and like the pacing he was doing. And it all ended with this amazing finale of him just running into the pond, arms flailing, and then he was like pretending to vomit for like 45 minutes. It was better than any episode of Vanderpump Rules. Look, I don't want to take pleasure in Reyes's misery. But let me remind you, Reyes did say that on planet Earth, I don't matter and I'm unimportant. And that's significantly meaner than being called a bad erotica writer. Or Sharon the Startled. Anyway, back to monster snouts. I did end up reading Mail Order Minotaur and Audited by the Anubis. And honestly, it wasn't as bad as I thought. In both books, when it got to the kissing with the snouts, it didn't feel weird to me. I guess it was because I was so invested in the characters behind the snout, you know? The sexy Minotaur, the protective Anubis. They could have had any weird protrusion and I would have loved them. So while I'm not okay emotionally with how my life is turning out, at least I'm fine reading erotica with monster snouts. In fact, whenever I walk by the Space Goat pen, Space Goat is what I call this animal that's been lurking near our campsite. It's technically something called an artiocapra, and it's like a cross between a dog and a goat. But in my head, I've been calling it Space Goat, or Alien Space Goat. Anyway, that thing has a snout, and I didn't want to fuck it. Although, obviously, something wanted to fuck it because it gave birth to 3 baby alien space goats recently, and I wonder, who did fuck it? There's no other alien space goat around that we know of, so could Immaculate Conception like be a thing on this planet? Or what if it was one of the Decipraxins? I mean, it could be. They have universal jizz. They jerk off and plant their cum in the ground, and we have vegetables. One of them procreates with a human, and you get a human. And we can now confirm this is the case. Reese just gave birth to human twins, Tam and Lynn. So, could one of the Decipraxins have fucked the alien space goat? I mean, Decipraxins aren't from Earth. They have different rules. What if bestiality isn't like a taboo thing on their home planet? Okay, this is interesting. And something that I must get to the bottom of. Because right now, I am navigating through a dark corner of the universe. And I'll take any activity that will distract me from the sobering truth. I am never returning to Earth. This has been Sharon Manovich, sharing my knowledge about romance novels. Bon voyage, and I'll see you next time aboard the Love Trope. Okay, who fucked this goat? Claim by TBD is a presentation of Too Stupid to Live, a podcast that reviews romance novels $5 and under. This episode is written and performed by Becky Feldman, music by Victor Natas and Codebox. Claim by TBD is a work of fiction. Any similarities to actual persons living or dead is purely coincidental and would be pretty incredible. Thank you for listening and subscribing. Bye!